most certainly redid this entire project a few times. I did stop at XYZ movements of the head on my previous version, and then I had to start over because I didn't like the way it was turning out. So imagine all of this footage times 2 with the work that I did. But today I am going to be rigging the face with vbridger in mind, so it requires a bunch of different parameters, especially for the mouth, which we'll see soon how complicated that is. I started with the eyebrows since they're the easiest part of the head to rig, then jumped into eye rigging, which was way easier than the first time I rigged them. Finally, I finished the mouth, jaw, and nose together since they all play off of each other. It also was the hardest, but the most rewarding part because I think the mouth is what makes this model amazing. At this point, you're probably wondering what the heck a VTuber even is. Some people think a VTuber is a genre, but really it's a type of streaming or video recording where instead of the actual footage of your real life self, you use a piece of art. This is done through drawing a character, performing complex rigging, or giving the character an option to move, like adding muscles and bones to the human body on said character, and facial tracking with an iPhone, Android, or webcam with a supporting program. It's actually really cool how it's done. I only recently learned about this myself when I first started this channel, so I'm fairly new to this process. I've only been doing this for about a year. So if you're curious about the concept art and the design and creating all the layers for this model, go ahead and watch the previous video in this series. I'll go ahead and link it. That explains in depth why I did absolutely everything with my current character design. But one thing I didn't mention is her cute little backstory. She's basically a trickster fae manifested from the discarded childhood memories of humans. And I want to give a big thank you for Gear Graphic for that. He helped me with the backstory so quickly that I cannot not mention him in this video. He is the person that I rigged this model for, and he will be debuting with it very soon, so go ahead and give him a follow on Twitter. So I start right off the bat with rigging the eyebrows since it's easy and simple. I of course had to add new parameters to work with vbridger, so basically you'll want to do the Y movements or the up and down movements, and then I also added a brow corner parameter, or 2 or 3, so when I furrow my eyebrows or I look worried, it'll show. Honestly, this is the easiest part of the process for me and didn't take very long at all to do, so it was a great intro and motivator to keep going. By the way, this entire rigging process took only 2 weeks. Yeah, only 2. I didn't realize the severity of my hyperfixation until I realized the whole thing and looked at when my first teaser was published. I was extremely surprised because it felt like a lot longer, but my perpetually unmedicated ADHD self is the way it is. I don't know why I'm surprised. Please do not try to complete a model in 2 weeks though. Even though it took 2 weeks for me, I was working on this model while I was working my normal job, and from the time I woke up to the time I went to bed at 3 a.m., including one all-nighter, for 2 weeks straight. No, that's not healthy. And no, please don't do that. Rigging for me is like a really good video game. I actually really love it and kind of get sucked into it sometimes, and that's why I finished it so fast. After the eyebrows was the eyes. Now the eyes were difficult the first time around because I meshed wrong, tried to use warp deformers instead of path deformers, and overall the movement was really janky. This time around I used path deformers and it was a lot faster. I did the closed eye, open eyes, prized eye, and smile and squint as well. Again, different parameters than normal due to vbridger. For the eye physics, I was pretty simple with it, just a cute little jiggle with some fading and sliding effects on the starry shines I added. I loved how the eye rigging turned out as a whole. It gave me a ton of motivation and hope that this model just might work out, and I wasn't wasting my time after all. I talk about a few things you might not know, and that's totally fine because I haven't explained it to you yet. So a VTuber is made with a few different programs. First, the model has to be drawn. It can be drawn with any drawing program that can export in a PSD file. You don't have to have Photoshop to do this either. For example, I use Procreate to draw my model and Clip Studio to organize the layers. Both of these programs export in the PSD file type. After the model is drawn, it has to be cut up into tons of different layers to make sure the model can move. Otherwise, it'll look like bad. Once the model is made and exported as a PSD, they're put into a rigging program. Most commonly used is Live 2D. This is where we work the magic, and this is where we are today. When rigging, there are meshes, deformers of all kinds, and parameters. These are the main 3 I'll talk about in this video. Meshes give the layer of the drawing flexibility, basically like the bones of the body, almost. Deformers move the meshes around and allow your model to have physics. They can also group layers together so you can move multiple layers at the same time. Finally, parameters tell meshes and deformers where to move and when, and allows VTube Studio to turn these deformers into trackable objects. Complicated, right? Think of that next time someone complains about how expensive it is to get a custom VTuber model. So we're at the mouth rigging, and oh boy, wow, it was complicated. So there are a ton of mouth movements vbridger can do that VTube Studio alone can't. It's totally doable to not have vbridger, but it's only $10 and it supports webcam now. It's just an extra set of parameters, and then your mouth movements just look a million times better. But I went ahead and jumped on the opportunity after Gear told me that he wanted vbridger in his model. So I bought vbridger. So in total, I may be wrong here. There are 36 total movements I made to my mouth, but it wasn't like 36 entirely new mouths. I was just changing a few in a very particular order to get the full range. Something I noticed was that mouth movements are really just for mouth movements, not expressions. To explain it a bit, if you sound out all the vowels and consonants, you'll notice that your mouth makes different shapes, like the N and the P and the A, E, I, O, U sounds too. That's basically what I'm doing here, giving my model as much of the range of motion of a human mouth that I can so it looks realistic to my face. The mouth movements themselves were, I believe, the thing that makes my model cute. Honestly, even though making the mouth was exhausting and complicated, it was so worth it in the end. So I thought I wouldn't be able to have time to cover the XYZ movements of the head in this video, but looks like I can. So scratch that part where we're just talking about the face. We're gonna be talking about all of it. Everything from the neck up, looks like. So with the XYZ movements, I primarily used a new tool called Apply 3D Rotation Expression, and you can find that in Modeling, Parameter, and Apply 3D Rotation Expression in the menu in Live 2D. Now this one was a lot to work with. This required a lot of intense steps, and if you want to do what I'm doing right now, I will go ahead and link this amazing tutorial in the description just so that you can know exactly how I did it, because it was intense. But it was so worth it, because what the Apply 3D Rotation Expression does is it basically automatically makes it so that your face and all of your facial features are set for 3D and will be proportionate on all angles. So it was super useful, and one of the main reasons why my face looks so good looking side to side, up and down. Now this was extraordinarily hard to get through. There were a few times I have crashed out, blown up, raged, and walked out of the room screaming and yelling because I was so mad. It is a huge learning curve. It's something that I had a lot of trouble with, but if you use glue layers in the proper way, it will work just fine. And honestly, at the end of the day, I don't regret using this tool. I highly recommend looking into it. It helps a ton with the XYZ movements in general. And if I had done this the traditional route, I would have spent twice the amount of time on it, even with all of the technical difficulties I had learning the tool. So first I started with the whole head all together, and then I adjusted things as time went on. So I would just mainly focus on the XY movements of the head, and even though the facial features looked a bit wonky, I would adjust that later, and then I would adjust each feature at a time. I did have to completely remesh some things in order for this to work properly, but that's totally fine. Hand meshing is time consuming, but oh so worth it. But yeah, I spent a ton of time trying to get the eyes perfect, the nose perfect. I did each facial feature one at a time. I know the horns were really hard because I wanted to make sure that they looked like they were actually attached to my head, so the base of the horns could not move at all. And that was very difficult for sure. But I eventually did get everything all in order. It took so long, but it was so worth it because of how cute she is. And then after all of that was done, I had to do the inside of the mouth, which was also a huge undertaking. There were a lot of 3D elements that went into this inside mouth bit, so there is a huge chunk of my recording just looking at the cursed inside of my mouth, and I am so sorry for that. It's terrifying. Also looks kind of cool. I had a lot of trouble with the bottom teeth that wrapped around the tongue, so I ended up having to jerry-rig it to work the way it does, but if the viewer can't see it and you can't see it at the end, then it doesn't matter too much, does it? But yeah, the back teeth were extremely hard. At the end, when I was looking at the inside of the mouth and doing the XY movements, it actually looked kind of cool because it did look 3D, which was really, really cool. I really enjoyed that. Another thing I did was with the eyes, I made it look like the pupils were kind of concave, if you will, cone-shaped like irises usually are behind the clear film on the front. I don't remember what it's called. Now with the hair was difficult. I did find out that the bald head was peeking out behind the bangs, but I didn't want to transform my head at all. I wanted a bald toggle really bad, so I wanted to make sure that that head didn't move at all and wasn't warped at all. So I ended up making a few different versions of like a buzz cut type of deal. It would just cover up that bit of the head without me having to warp it around. Now that was a lot of fun. I had to do a lot of different versions of that little scalp bit, but it was worth it because it's not even noticeable in the model, and because of that I can have my precious, beautiful, wonderful bald toggle like I've always wanted. I did have to do some final checks to make sure every single mouth movement would look good on every every single angle, as well as the eyes, everything else. And I did that by using VTube Studio, surprisingly. So there is a plugin in VTube Studio where you can link it directly to Live 2D, and it was amazing. So if you plan on doing this, please do not do this for the whole program. Only make it show up in the physics settings window, because it will destroy your computer if you do it any other setting. But it was so useful. Once I figured that out, I could just test the mouth movements and everything how exactly I wanted to. I ended up using that a ton to test every single movement I did, both for the head movements as well as the body movements, which is what we'll get in the next video. We'll definitely do the body movements in the next video, that's for sure. I also added a little mask over the chin area, so when I looked up, the line art for my head would disappear and it would merge with like the head shadow and the neck shadow. That ended up looking beautiful and seamless, and I really love how my cute little head looks up because her little jaw flattens in the most perfect way, and it's probably the most like accurate to 3D representation of a model that I've ever made. So I would highly recommend that tool I mentioned before, the Apply 3D Rotation Expression. It is definitely worth a try and worth a look into. And then finally, the last step was doing the Z movements, and the Z movements were really easy compared to the XYZ. I just made a separate deformer for the Z, so that way it didn't affect anything with the XY movements, and it would also carry it over. I did have to play around with the pigtails because I wanted them to actually squish while my head was angled down, like on one side to the other. But yeah, that's basically the rundown for the XYZ movements. Now, I did go over some basic physics with the hair and the ears and all of that, just to make sure, you know, the earrings would dangle around and the bangs would move and everything's all jiggly and bouncy and beautiful and wonderful and satisfying to look at. But other than that, the XYZ movements of the head, the facial expressions, they're all pretty much done. I finished that part in a week, and the second week was the body. So I am so excited to show you guys this model. I am so excited. She has been done for quite some time, and I just can't wait to show her off. I'm getting everything ready for the debut on March 30th at 7 p.m. CST, Central Standard Time in America, and I am going to be streaming regularly again on Twitch. I'll be using the footage to help record some of my videos. It'll be a lot easier, and I'll be able to hang out with y'all while I draw. It's gonna be so fun, and I'm so excited to see you there. I'll also be playing video games there as well, so if you're interested in that, I'm so happy how this model is turning out. I hope you are too, and I hope you were inspired. Oh, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this video. I am trying to be a little less talkative this time around, lower my tone a bit, be a little bit more chill, because I feel like originally I was pretty chill and then I got a little too hyped up. So I'm hoping that you guys like this a little bit better and it's a little bit more relaxing to watch. I don't know, it just depends on what you want. Just let me know down in the comments if you like this chill vibe or if you like the other vibe that I'm going for. So I will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.